What is reality transurfing? Does it work? What are the major principles which underlie this concept, and how do we put them into practice in our daily life? Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please consider subscribing and clicking on the bell for notifications. This is the channel to learn about literature and life. Reality transurfing is the philosophical self-help system developed by the Russian writer Vadim Zeland. His two books, which best articulate the system, are Reality Transurfing Steps 1 through 5 and Transurfing in 78 Days, a practical course in creating your own reality. Overall, the concepts contained within reality transurfing are gracefully conceived and incredibly helpful. Perhaps Zeland's single best standalone concept from the entire system is his concept of pendulums. Once you understand what pendulums are and how to avoid them when possible, you will look at the world in a new way and find it much easier to navigate toward your own happiness. Okay, so what is a pendulum? Basically, a pendulum is Zeland's name for a social group, institution, or energy system which sucks in a person's energy and provides them with a groupthink identity. Think of corporations. Amazon, a very large and very powerful pendulum. Microsoft, Apple, Facebook, but pendulums can exist on much smaller scales. The high school you graduated from, a pendulum. Politics? Well, obviously the Democrat and Republican parties are pendulums. Even political topics are pendulums. The issue of gun control is a pendulum. Now, the important thing to remember is that once a pendulum begins to move with energy, it has a life of its own. It's also important to note that for the purposes of reality transurfing as a self-development system, something like gun control as a political issue will try to suck you into either side. As far as the pendulum operates, it doesn't matter what side you're on, so long as you're a part of the energy movement. It's crucial to realize that many pendulums are unavoidable, but you are always best served to recognize when you are coming into contact with one and how much energy the pendulum is drawing from you. Let's say you enjoy politics and you're on the political left. Fine, you clearly support many gun control measures, obviously nothing wrong with this. However, one has to be careful that the pendulum doesn't pull your entire identity up within its group movement and consume you. If you have some political beliefs, whether you are on the right or the left, you need to make sure that you don't get so swept up into the pendulum that it takes over your life and causes you harm. Let's also look at pendulums within careers and education. Obviously, if you're a college student, you're in that group energy think pendulum of college students. Within that, there is a great deal of variety. A wealthy, pampered kid attending an Ivy League school is on a different pendulum than a first-generation college student going to a community college or a regional public university. A pendulum doesn't always have to be bad. Let's say you graduated from college with your degree in finance and you get your job at a large financial institution. If you play your cards right, you're not only getting a good salary, a sense of accomplishment, a new group of peers and friends, and a way to give your life meaning, as long as you don't let the pendulum control your identity. Thus, you can enjoy your corporate job and even be proud of yourself, but keep in mind that the pendulum of your place of employment has its own trajectory, and that the best thing you can do is go along for the ride. Perhaps learn something, make your resume more valuable, make good money, etc. However, you have to keep on your guard about what values and habits you begin to take for granted as part of your pendulum's culture. If you enjoy politics, make sure to ask yourself, what am I getting out of this pendulum? Let's say you're a Republican. Ask yourself, what am I getting out of this identity? If I hate everyone on the political left, is that actually good for me? Of course, the same applies if you're a Democrat. Ask yourself, what am I getting out of this identity? If I take shortcuts to original thinking and spend lots of time online hating and arguing with others, what good does that do you? In essence, pendulums begin as a habit or ideology among a small group of people. Whether it's something as long ago as a lone religious figure or whether it's the foundation of a political movement, things start small, then they quickly gain momentum, and more often than not, they eventually transform into an entirely different ideology or movement than the original members had in mind. Zeland describes this original formulation of a pendulum in his book Reality Transurfing, Steps 1 through 5. Quote, on an energetic level, however, a structure appears when a group of people think in the same way, as a result of which the parameters of their thought energy are identical. Their thought energy finally unites into a single current. When this happens, as if in the middle of an entire ocean of energy, a separate energy information structure is created, which is referred to as an energy pendulum. Unquote. Remembering that Zeland is a physicist, you can tell how he makes a brilliant analogy between the currents of energy and the manner in which people's habits and groupthink shift. Think of social psychology and the things we learn about human behavior as soon as people become part of a group of 2 or even 3 people. The more people in the group, the less likely that people are to speak up when something improper or unethical transpires. Again, pendulums can arise in any type of institution, congregation, or group. Sports teams, pendulums. The importance of understanding and conceptualizing group thought and behavior as a pendulum is that we simply make sure that we aren't influenced by it in an unconscious manner. If I want to root for a sports team or be a part of a political group, it's not a problem per se. It only becomes a problem when the group identity takes over a person's life and they don't even realize that the process has become dysfunctional. One of the more stark and unpleasant aspects of this would be, of course, going down the rabbit hole into a conspiracy theory. When an ideology becomes all-consuming so that you no longer have any perspective or any ability to laugh at the absurdity of it all, then, by definition, you are no longer benefiting from that system of thought. Consider a college student on the political right or left who joins the college Republicans or college Democrats at their school. Any problem with this? Absolutely not. They meet people, they get into an organization which actually has a lot of potential benefits for their social life and their intellectual life. Then, hopefully, they get into a leadership position in the organization, and it helps their resume. All is well. The problem comes when one is no longer able to speak to family on the other side of the political fence, or if you are simply unable to understand why others vote for the oppositional candidate. As one becomes more and more conscious of their actions and thought patterns, one is able to recognize that there are many organizations which one can be a part of, but without letting it overwhelm one ideologically. The more one is able to see things from a larger perspective and to understand and sympathize with others, then the more likely the different groups and organizations can benefit them, and they will actually benefit the organization. So what is the key takeaway from conceptualizing social groups, political organizations, and even certain lifestyle choices as pendulums? One begins to recognize more and more that the world contains an almost infinite number of ways to show up and live in this world. There becomes fewer and fewer limits to how you see your life being able to work out in a healthy and psychologically functional manner. One begins to see so much beauty in the world and feels less and less inclination to judge others. You realize that you can, for example, go to a sporting event, root for your team, wear a silly t-shirt with the team's logo on it, and win or lose, it all becomes a sort of amusing carnival-like activity. It's really a win-win scenario no matter what happens. You realize you can take part in your own party's political process and bring a sort of detached, pleasant, and more self-confident presence into any type of meeting or organizational activities. You also begin to see groups and institutions for what they really are instead of what they pretend to be on the surface. This, in turn, helps you to have more and more self-confidence, knowing that you are able to take the best of what the group has to offer, and when you have gotten anything from it that can benefit you personally, you allow yourself to separate from the group without it causing any larger problems in your life. If you're a college student, for example, and you attend a school with a Greek system, you recognize that there are certain benefits to joining. But on the other hand, you don't have to. You can, quite literally, either take it or leave it. It literally doesn't even remotely matter, outside of the fact that whatever your intuition tells you might be best for you. If you're a young man at a university with a prominent Greek system and you know you're going to major in business or marketing, and you may have more of a disposable income from coming from a wealthy family, Should you join a fraternity? Well, sure, why not? It can be a very fun experience that you'll treasure forever. You have to recognize that the groupthink identity will be strong within that organization, and you'll have to slightly be on guard to make sure that you don't get roped into any type of behavior that you'll eventually regret. But overall, it can be a very good experience. Let's say you're going to the same university and it just doesn't feel right to you. Maybe you have a more artistic inclination or you value your individuality more. You can absolutely skip the Greek system and it's not going to help or hurt you either way. There is literally no right or wrong answer or path to choose. Whatever benefits come from having a ready-made social group to be a part of will eventually be reconciled at some point, either when you graduate or when you leave the university and have to make abrupt changes in your lifestyle and move somewhere else. The most important thing to recognize about pendulums is that they are everywhere. Pendulums are ubiquitous, and it is actually impossible to navigate this world without being a part of several. As you objectively look at the ways you show up in this world, you begin to be more and more conscious of your own decision-making process, recognizing different aspects of college life, for example, going to sporting events, participating in Greek life, partying, and even what type of friend groups you have. Recognizing these different aspects of your life and seeing everything that you do as a conscious decision and not merely a habit becomes the key to understanding and benefiting from pendulums. This, then, is Vadim Zeland's greatest contribution within his overall reality transurfing project, articulating the types of social groups, institutions, and groupthinks that we so frequently become a part of. The key to remember is that, especially when a person is in their 20s and even their 30s, it is impossible to not be a part of pendulums. Whether you're a college student or whether you join the military, obviously a very huge pendulum, or if you're working, whether it's in a rural area or a large city, no matter what, you will be a part of a pendulum. As you recognize that the vast majority of groups and organizations are neither good nor bad purely on their own merits, but are parts of larger pendulum forces, you are then able to show up to work or school in a more open-minded manner. You recognize that nearly every single contemporary political issue has more than one side to it, and you recognize that people who disagree with you, even strongly, on different political issues, all have very valid reasons for doing so, and had you been born into their family and raised in their circumstances, chances are unimaginably high that you would feel the exact same way that they do. Actually, simply by recognizing a group, career, or institution as a pendulum, you automatically decrease its power on you. If people want to go out in the streets and protest on either side of a political issue, you recognize that it doesn't concern you in even the slightest manner. There are nearly 350 million other human beings jostling around and struggling in America. Your faith in or condemnation of any political issue is not going to do anybody even the slightest bit of good. You can vote, you can continue to slightly associate with your former political views, but you absolutely should not be controlled by those views, nor should you be mentally attached to them. The beauty of all this is that it frees up your own mental space and time for pursuing things that you actually love, as you reduce your dependence on and care for all the different pendulums which are now a part of your life. You not only gain wisdom and perspective, but automatically have a much easier time believing in and achieving your own goals. Take the time to consider how the job you have or the school you attend is only a social group energy system. It's certainly not one you need to be a part of for a very long time. Even if you've been in your current field for a significant amount of time, simply being more aware of your vocation in a pendulum energy system automatically frees your relationship to the group and allows you closer proximity to other avenues for your positive functioning and future growth and happiness. Take the time to consider what groups, online or in person, are you a part of? Does your participation in this audience, fan club, membership, or group benefit you? If it used to benefit you in the past but no longer does, then simply recognize that with no judgment and allow yourself the opportunity for the space to move on when it's appropriate. There are countless relationships that we have with other individuals and groups, but when we become an objective observer of these relationships, we automatically shift from being an unconscious participant to being a conscious, independent individual. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel, and please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing for more videos on literature and life.